"You are my dad." The words did not just echo, they cut through the courtroom like something sharp and impossible to ignore. And for a moment, even the old ceiling fan seemed to stop spinning as every single person turned toward the small voice that had just spoken. The judge froze. "Just before we get back to it, I'm curious to know, where are you watching from today? And if these stories have been keeping you captivated, be sure to subscribe so you never miss the next one." Judge Daniel Whitmore, a respected white man in his late 50s, known for his calm voice and strict fairness, sat stiff behind the bench with his gavel still raised halfway in the air, as if time itself had paused just for him. And his eyes slowly dropped from the case file in front of him to the little girl standing in the aisle. She couldn't have been more than 8 years old. Her skin was deep brown, glowing under the courtroom lights, her hair tied into two slightly uneven puff buns, and her small fingers clutched the edge of a worn-out hoodie like she was holding onto the only thing that made her feel safe. Yet her eyes, wide and unshaking, were locked directly onto his. "You are my dad," she repeated, louder this time, her voice trembling but firm enough to send whispers rushing through the room. Gasps filled the courtroom. A lawyer dropped his pen. Someone in the back let out a quiet "what?" while others leaned forward, trying to understand what they had just heard, and the court officer took a step forward as if unsure whether to stop the child or listen. Judge Whitmore blinked once, then twice, his face slowly draining of color as if something deep inside him had just been pulled to the surface without warning. "That is not appropriate," he said finally, his voice lower than usual, rougher, like it had lost its usual authority. "Young lady, you cannot interrupt court proceedings like this." The girl didn't move. "Name is Amara Johnson," she said, her voice now steadier, stronger than anyone expected from someone her age. "And my mom said if I ever found you, I should tell you the truth." The room grew even quieter. From the front row, a woman suddenly stood up so quickly her chair scraped loudly against the floor, and all eyes turned to her as she rushed forward, her face filled with panic. "Amara, baby, no," she whispered urgently, grabbing the girl's arm. "We talked about this, not here, not like this." Amara pulled slightly away, not fully breaking free, just enough to keep her eyes fixed on the judge. "You left us," Amara said, her voice cracking just a little now. "You didn't even know I existed, but you're my dad." The courtroom exploded into murmurs. Judge Whitmore's hand slowly lowered from the gavel, and for the first time in his long career, he looked completely unsure of what to do, his gaze shifting from the child to the woman holding her and then back again. "Ma'am," he said carefully, trying to regain control, "you need to explain what is happening here." Woman hesitated. Her name was Keisha Johnson, and the moment the judge said those words, something in her face changed, like she had reached the point where hiding was no longer possible. She swallowed hard. "I didn't want it to come out like this," she said softly, her voice shaking but clear enough for everyone to hear. "But she's telling the truth." Louder wave of shock rolled through the courtroom. Judge Whitmore leaned back slightly in his chair, staring at her now, really looking at her as if searching through years of memory he didn't even know he still had. "That's impossible," he said. Keisha shook her head slowly. She replied, "It's not." Amara took a small step forward, her voice quieter now, almost like she was speaking only to him even though everyone was listening. "You used to sing to my mom," she said. "She told me your favorite song was the one about the river, and you said if you ever had a daughter, you'd name her something special." Whitmore's breath caught. Because that was not something anyone else could know. The room went completely silent again, the kind of silence that feels heavy, like something big is about to break. The judge's eyes slowly widened as a memory, buried deep and forgotten on purpose, began to rise back to the surface. And then, in a voice barely above a whisper, he said, "What did you say your name was again?" Amara lifted her chin just slightly. "Amara," she said. The gavel slipped from his hand and hit the desk with a dull, final sound. And in that moment, Judge Daniel Whitmore realized something that made his entire world begin to tilt. Because there was only one person who had ever heard him say that name before, only one woman, and she had disappeared over 10 years ago without a trace. The courtroom held its breath as his past came crashing back to life. But what no one knew yet was that the truth behind Amara's words was far more complicated and far more dangerous than anyone in that room could have imagined. And as Judge Whitmore stared at the child who might be his daughter, one terrifying question rose in his mind. If she was telling the truth, then who had been lying all these years? Judge Daniel Whitmore had spent his entire career believing that truth was something you could uncover with patience, logic, and the law. But as he stared at Amara Johnson standing in his courtroom, he felt something unfamiliar creeping into his chest, something heavier than doubt and sharper than confusion, because this was not just a case anymore, this was personal. The courtroom was still buzzing with whispers, voices rising and falling like waves that refused to settle, and the court officer looked toward the judge, waiting for instructions. But for once, Judge Whitmore did not speak immediately. Instead, his mind had already traveled back to a time he had locked away. "Clear the courtroom," he said finally, his voice firm but quieter than usual. The room froze for half a second before the court officer quickly stepped forward. "Rise, this session is adjourned for now," the officer announced. People began to gather their things, but no one moved quickly, everyone trying to catch one last look at the little girl, the woman beside her, and the judge whose world had just been shaken. And even as they walked out, whispers followed them like shadows. Within minutes, the courtroom was empty. Only 4 people remained: Judge Whitmore, Amara, Keisha, and the court officer standing by the door. "Leave us," the judge said, not even looking up. The officer hesitated for a second, then nodded and stepped out, closing the door behind him with a soft click that echoed louder than it should have. Silence filled the room again. This time, it felt different. He leaned forward slowly, resting his hands on the desk, his eyes fixed on Keisha now. "Start talking," he said. Keisha took a deep breath, her grip tightening around Amara's shoulder like she was trying to protect her from something invisible. "You remember me," she said, not as a question, but as something she needed him to admit. Judge Whitmore did not answer right away. He studied her face carefully, and as the years peeled back in his memory, something began to take shape, something younger, softer, less guarded. "Keisha," he said slowly, like the name itself was fragile. She nodded once. "Yes." A long pause followed. "I thought you left," he said. "No explanation, no goodbye, nothing. You just disappeared." Keisha let out a short, almost bitter laugh, but there was no humor in it. "That's what you were told," she said. The words hit him differently. "What does that mean?" he asked, his voice tightening. "It means you didn't come looking," she replied. Amara shifted slightly beside her, glancing between them, sensing the tension even if she didn't fully understand it. "I was told you didn't want anything to do with me," Keisha continued, her voice steady but carrying years of pain beneath it. "That you had your future planned, your law career, your reputation, and a girl like me didn't fit into that." Whitmore's eyebrows pulled together. "That's not true," he said immediately. "I would never have said that." Keisha held his gaze. "Then who did?" she asked. The question hung in the air, heavy and dangerous. He leaned back slowly, his mind racing now, connecting pieces that had never seemed connected before. "I received a letter," he said after a moment. "From you. It said you were leaving the city, that you needed a fresh start, that it was over." Keisha's face went still. "I never wrote you any letter," she said quietly. The room seemed to shrink. Amara looked up at her mother, then back at the judge, her small voice breaking the silence. "You didn't leave him?" she asked. Keisha shook her head gently, kneeling down slightly so she could look her daughter in the eyes. "No, baby," she said softly. "I didn't leave him." Whitmore's heart pounded harder now, each word pulling him deeper into something he didn't fully understand yet. "Then what happened?" he asked. Keisha stood back up, her eyes locking onto his again. "Your family happened," she said. His expression changed instantly. "Family," he repeated. She said, "Your mother, to be exact." A sharp silence followed. "That's not possible," he said, but his voice lacked the certainty it once had. Keisha stepped forward slightly, her voice lowering. "She came to see me," she said, "the day after you told her about us." Whitmore's chest tightened. He asked. Keisha swallowed. "She told me I wasn't good enough for you," she said. "That if I cared about you, I would disappear before I ruined your life." Amara's fingers tightened around her hoodie again. "And you believed her?" the judge asked, his voice rising just a little. "I didn't have a choice," Keisha replied. "Because she didn't just threaten me." She paused. The room felt colder. "What did she do?" he asked quietly. Keisha looked down at Amara for a brief second, then back at him. "She told me I was already too late," she said. "Because by then," her voice broke slightly, but she pushed through, "I was already pregnant." The words hit like a shockwave. Judge Whitmore's breath left him in a slow, stunned exhale as his eyes slowly drifted to Amara again, seeing her differently now, not just as a child making a bold claim, but as a possibility he could no longer ignore. "But that still doesn't explain why you disappeared," he said. Keisha's expression hardened. "It does," she said. "Because your mother didn't just want me gone." She took a step closer. "She made sure I had no way to come back." Whitmore felt a chill run through him. "What are you saying?" he asked. Keisha opened her mouth to answer. But before she could speak, the courtroom door suddenly burst open. Everyone turned. A tall man in a dark suit stepped in quickly, his face tense, his eyes locking directly onto the judge. "Sir," he said urgently, "you need to see this right now." Whitmore frowned. "What is it?" The man hesitated, then held up a file. "It's about your mother," he said. The room went still again. "It's not what you think." Keisha's eyes widened slightly. Amara looked confused, and Judge Whitmore slowly stood up, a deep sense of unease settling into his bones, because something told him. Judge Daniel Whitmore stared at the file in the man's hand, and for a moment he didn't move, didn't speak, didn't even blink, because something deep inside him was already warning him that whatever was inside that folder was about to change everything he thought he knew about his past. "Who are you?" he asked slowly, his voice steady but cautious. The man stepped forward, adjusting his suit slightly. "Name is Marcus Reed," he said. "I'm an investigator, and I've been looking into your family for a long time." Keisha's grip on Amara tightened instantly. "Looking into his family," she repeated, her tone filled with suspicion. "Why would anyone do that?" Marcus hesitated for just a second, then turned his attention back to the judge. "Because your mother wasn't who people thought she was," he said. The air in the room shifted. Judge Whitmore's jaw tightened slightly. "Mother was a respected woman," he said firmly. "She built charities, funded schools, helped people." Gave a small nod. "Yes," he said. "That's the version the public knew." A heavy silence followed. "Open the file," Marcus added. For a brief moment the judge didn't move, like part of him wanted to reject everything before it even began. But then he reached forward, took the file, and slowly opened it. The first thing he saw was a photograph. His hand froze. It was Keisha, younger, sitting in what looked like a small office, her face tense, her eyes red like she had been crying. And across from her, his mother. Judge Whitmore's breath caught. "This," he whispered, flipping to the next page. Documents, signed papers, dates from over 10 years ago. His eyes scanned quickly, trying to make sense of it, but the more he read, the less sense anything made. "What is this?" he asked, his voice now strained. Marcus stepped closer. "That's a non-disclosure agreement," he said. "Your mother had her sign it." Keisha closed her eyes briefly. "I didn't have a choice," she said quietly. Judge Whitmore looked up sharply. "She paid you to disappear?" he asked. Keisha shook her head slowly. She said, "She didn't pay me." Marcus spoke again, his tone heavier now. "She threatened her," he said. The judge's grip tightened on the file. "With what?" he demanded. Marcus reached into his pocket and pulled out a second photograph, handing it over. The judge took it, and his entire body went still. It was a picture of a small, run-down apartment. But that was what shocked him. What shocked him was what was written on the back. "Notice, immediate removal." She had connections, Marcus said. Powerful ones. Landlords, banks, even people in the legal system. She made sure Keisha lost everything: her home, her job opportunities, her support system. Keisha's voice came quietly from behind. "She told me if I tried to contact you, things would get worse," she said. "And when I didn't listen," her voice trailed off. Judge Whitmore turned to her slowly. "What happened?" he asked. Keisha looked at Amara for a moment, then gently brushed her daughter's hair back before answering. "I was arrested," she said. The words hit hard. "For what?" the judge asked, disbelief clear in his tone. "For something I didn't do," she replied. "The charges didn't even make sense, but I couldn't fight it. I didn't have money, I didn't have help, and your mother made sure no one would stand by me." Looked up suddenly. "You went to jail?" she asked softly. Keisha nodded once. "For a short time," she said, "but it was enough." Whitmore felt his chest tighten again, anger now mixing with confusion. "This is insane," he said. "My mother would never." "She would," Marcus interrupted, his voice firm now. "And she did." The room fell silent again. The judge looked back down at the file, flipping through more pages, more evidence, more pieces of a story he had never been told. "But why?" he asked, almost to himself. "Why go this far?" Keisha answered. "Because of me," she said. "Because of what I represented." Looked at her. "You were a threat," she continued. Not because of who I was, but because of what people would say. A young black woman, pregnant with the child of a rising white lawyer with a powerful family name. It didn't fit the image she wanted for you. The words sat heavy in the air. Judge Whitmore closed the file slowly. For years he had admired his mother, respected her, trusted her. But now everything felt uncertain. And the letter, he asked. The one I received, Marcus sighed. Forged, he said. We found evidence that it was created by someone working for your mother. She needed you to believe Keisha had chosen to leave her so you wouldn't go looking. Keisha looked at him carefully. And you didn't, she said, not accusing, just stating a fact. The judge didn't respond, because she was right. He hadn't looked, he had accepted the pain, buried it, and moved on. And now, standing in front of him, was a child who might be his daughter, a living reminder of everything he had lost without even knowing it. Amara took a small step forward again. You didn't leave us, she asked him, her voice hopeful but cautious. Judge Whitmore looked down at her, his expression softer now, conflicted. He said quietly, I didn't. A small silence followed, then Marcus spoke again. There's more, he said. The judge looked up sharply. More, he repeated. Marcus nodded. What you've seen so far is just the beginning, he said. Because your mother didn't just separate you two, paused, his expression growing darker. She was hiding something much bigger. Keisha's eyes narrowed slightly. What do you mean? She asked. Marcus hesitated, then reached into the file again, pulling out one final document. He handed it to the judge. Read the last page, he said. Judge Whitmore looked down, his eyes scanning quickly. And then his face changed completely. His hands began to shake slightly as he read the final line again, just to make sure he wasn't imagining it. What is it? Keisha asked, her voice tense now. The judge slowly looked up at her, and when he spoke, his voice was barely steady. It says, he began, he swallowed hard. It says Amara might not be the only child. The room went completely still. Amara blinked, Keisha's face went pale, and Marcus lowered his voice as he added one final sentence. And the other child, he paused, is missing. The word missing did not just land in the room. It settled into every corner like something alive, something that refused to be ignored. And for a few seconds no one spoke because no one quite knew how to respond to something that heavy. Keisha was the first to move. That's not possible, she said quickly, almost too quickly, shaking her head as if rejecting the idea before it could fully form. I only had one child. I would know if I had another. Didn't argue right away. Instead, he watched her carefully like someone who had seen this reaction before. I understand why you'd say that, he replied calmly. But the record suggests something different. Whitmore stepped down from the bench slowly, no longer looking like the powerful figure who controlled the courtroom, but like a man trying to catch up with a past that had outrun him. What kind of records? He asked. Marcus flipped the file open again and pointed to a section filled with medical notes and typed reports. Hospital records from 10 years ago, he said. They show that you were admitted under emergency conditions. Keisha's brows furrowed. I remember that, she said cautiously. I got sick during my pregnancy. They said it was stress. Nodded, he said. That's what you were told. The tone in his voice made it clear there was more. Judge Whitmore leaned closer. And what actually happened? He asked. Marcus took a breath. You weren't just carrying one baby, he said. The words hung in the air. Keisha froze. She whispered, That's not true. You were pregnant with twins, Marcus continued, his voice steady, careful, like he knew every word mattered. But something went wrong during delivery, or at least that's what you were told. Amara looked up at her mother, confusion spreading across her face. She asked softly. Keisha didn't answer. Her mind was already racing, memories shifting, moments that never made sense now starting to feel different. I remember, she began slowly. I remember waking up and they told me the baby was fine, that everything was okay. Nodded. They told you what they wanted you to believe, he said. Judge Whitmore's heart was pounding harder now. And the second child, he asked. What happened? Marcus hesitated. That's the problem, he said. There's no official record of a second child being born, but there are gaps, missing files, altered timestamps, signatures that don't match the doctors on duty. The judge's expression darkened. You're saying someone covered it up, he said. Yes, Marcus replied. And all signs point back to one person. Didn't need to say the name, they all knew. Keisha staggered back slightly, grabbing onto the nearest bench for support as the weight of it all began to sink in. She whispered. No, she couldn't. Amara rushed to her side. "Mom, what's wrong?" she asked, her voice filled with worry. Keisha looked down at her daughter, her eyes now filled with something deeper than fear, guilt. "If this is true," she said slowly, her voice shaking, "then there's a chance I left my baby behind." Amara's eyes widened. "You mean I have a brother or sister?" she asked. No one answered immediately, because none of them knew the full truth yet. Judge Whitmore clenched his jaw, anger now rising in him stronger than before. "Mother is dead," he said, his voice tight. "She can't answer for any of this." Nodded. "I know," he said, "but that doesn't mean the truth is gone. There are still people who worked for her, people who helped carry out whatever she was planning." The judge looked at him sharply. "Do you know who they are?" he asked. Marcus hesitated again. "I have a few names," he said, "but one stands out." Keisha straightened slightly. She asked. Marcus looked directly at Judge Whitmore. "Dr. Leonard Hayes," he said. "He was the attending physician the night you gave birth." Name hit Keisha instantly. Her eyes widened. "I remember him," she said. "He was the one who told me everything was okay." Gave a small nod. "He disappeared 2 years after that," he said. "Closed his practice, moved out of state, no forwarding address." Whitmore's fists clenched. "That's not a coincidence," he said. Marcus agreed. "It's not." Looked between all of them, trying to piece everything together. "Someone took the other baby?" she asked quietly. The question hung in the air. Keisha slowly nodded, though it looked like it physically hurt her to do so. "I don't know for sure," she said, "but it's starting to feel that way." Whitmore began packing slowly, his mind racing faster now, connecting everything he had just learned. "If my mother went this far to separate us," he said, "then there had to be a reason." Marcus crossed his arms. "There was," he said, "and I think it's tied to the second child." Keisha looked at him sharply. "What do you mean?" she asked. Marcus stepped closer, lowering his voice. "I think that child wasn't just taken," he said. The room seemed to hold its breath again. "I think that child was placed somewhere very specific." Whitmore stopped packing. "Where?" he asked. Marcus hesitated just for a moment, then he answered. "A family," he said. "A powerful one." A cold silence followed. Keisha's stomach dropped. "You're saying my child was given away?" she asked. Marcus didn't look away. He said. Amara stepped forward again, her small voice cutting through the tension. "But why would someone do that?" she asked. No one spoke right away. Until finally, Judge Whitmore answered. "That child," he said slowly, "might have been worth something to the right people." Keisha's eyes filled with disbelief. "What kind of people?" she asked. Marcus looked at both of them, his expression serious. "The kind of people who don't just adopt children," he said. He paused. "They choose them." Meaning behind those words was chilling. Judge Whitmore felt a deep unease settle into his chest again. "Do you know where that child is now?" he asked. Marcus shook his head. "Not exactly," he said, "but I've been getting close." Keisha stepped forward, her voice desperate now. "Then we find them," she said. "We don't wait, we don't think about it, we just go." Didn't respond immediately. Instead, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small folded piece of paper. "What is that?" the judge asked. Marcus unfolded it slowly. "It's the last lead I found," he said. "An address." The room grew still again. Keisha leaned forward slightly. "Where does it lead?" she asked. Marcus looked down at the paper, then back up at them. And when he spoke, his voice carried something new, concern. "It leads to a place your mother funded personally," he said. Judge Whitmore's heart skipped. "What place?" he asked. Marcus held his gaze. "An orphanage," he said. Amara's eyes widened. Keisha's breath caught. And Judge Whitmore felt a chilling realization creep into his mind. Because if that was true, then their search for the missing child was about to uncover something much bigger than just a family secret, something that had been hidden in plain sight for years. And as Marcus folded the paper again, he added one final sentence. "But there's one problem." Whitmore frowned. "What problem?" Marcus's expression darkened. "That orphanage," he said slowly. "It burned down." The words "it burned down" did not just bring silence, they brought something heavier, something final, like a door slamming shut before anyone even had the chance to walk through it. Keisha took a step back as if the ground beneath her had suddenly shifted. She whispered, shaking her head slowly. "No, that can't be it. That can't be where the story ends." Amara looked up at her, her small face filled with confusion and fear. "Does that mean we can't find them?" she asked softly. Keisha didn't answer immediately because the truth was clawing its way into her chest, and she was fighting it with everything she had. Judge Whitmore stepped forward, his expression now firm, his voice carrying something stronger than before. "It's not the end," he said. Marcus glanced at him. "You don't know that," he replied. "I do," the judge said, his tone sharper now. "Because fires destroy buildings, but they don't erase everything." Statement hung in the air. Marcus studied him for a moment, then gave a slight nod. "You're right," he admitted. "And that's why I kept digging." Keisha looked up quickly. "What did you find?" she asked. Marcus reached into his briefcase and pulled out another set of documents, thinner this time but no less important. "Insurance reports," he said. "Fire department records, news archives." Whitmore crossed his arms. He pressed. Marcus hesitated briefly, then spoke. "The fire wasn't an accident." The room froze again. Amara's eyes widened. "You mean someone did it on purpose?" she asked. Marcus nodded. He said, "It was ruled as electrical at first, but there were inconsistencies. Burn patterns didn't match. Witness statements were ignored." Keisha's breathing grew uneven. "Why would someone burn down an orphanage?" she asked, her voice shaking. Judge Whitmore answered quietly, "To destroy evidence." All eyes turned to him. "If that orphanage was connected to what my mother did," continued, "then it wasn't just a home for children, it was part of something else." Gave a small nod. "That's exactly what I think," he said. Amara clutched her hoodie tighter. "The other child," she said slowly, trying to follow. "They were there, possibly," Marcus replied. "But here, where it gets complicated." Keisha stepped closer, her patience thinning. "Just say it," she said. Marcus looked at her directly. "There were survivors." The words hit like a spark in the dark. Keisha's eyes widened instantly. "Survivors," she repeated. "You mean some of the kids made it out?" "Yes," Marcus said. "Not all, but some." Amara's face lit up with a small, hopeful expression. "Then maybe my brother or sister is one of them," she said. Judge Whitmore looked at Marcus. "Do you have a list?" he asked. Marcus nodded slowly. "I managed to track down partial records," he said. "Names of children who were registered at the orphanage before the fire and some who were relocated afterward." Keisha's hands trembled slightly. "Show me," she said. Marcus handed over the papers. She grabbed them quickly, her eyes scanning line after line, name after name, her heart racing with every second. "Please," she whispered under her breath. "Please let me recognize something." Whitmore stepped closer, looking over her shoulder while Amara stood on her tiptoes, trying to see as well. The list was long, too long, and yet every name felt important. Every name felt like it could be the one. Minutes passed. The tension grew thicker, and then Keisha froze, her finger stopped moving, her breath caught. "What is it?" Judge Whitmore asked immediately. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she stared at the name like it was something she both feared and hoped for at the same time. I don't know why this feels familiar," she said slowly. Amara leaned closer. "What does it say?" she asked. Keisha swallowed hard. "Ethan," she read softly. "Ethan Cole." The name lingered in the air. Judge Whitmore frowned slightly. "Does that name mean something to you?" he asked. Keisha shook her head. "Not exactly," she said, "but it feels connected somehow." Stepped forward. "That's one of the names that stood out to me," he said. "Because after the fire, that child wasn't just relocated." He paused. "He was adopted almost immediately." Whitmore's expression sharpened. "Who?" he asked. Marcus hesitated again, and this time the pause was longer. Keisha looked up, her eyes filled with urgency. "Tell us," she said. Marcus took a breath. "A very influential family," he said. "The Coles." Whitmore's face changed instantly. "That's not possible," he said under his breath. Keisha looked at him. "You know them?" she asked. He nodded slowly. "Everyone knows them," he said. "They're one of the most powerful families in the state. Business, politics, their name is everywhere." Looked confused. "What does that mean?" she asked. Marcus answered. "It means," he said carefully, "if Ethan Cole is your missing child." He looked at Keisha. "Then your child didn't just survive." He paused. "He was raised in a world of power." The room fell silent again. Keisha stared down at the paper, her hands shaking more now. "My child," she whispered, "living all this time and I didn't even know." Whitmore clenched his jaw. "We need to confirm this," he said. "We can't just assume." Nodded. "I agree," he said. "But there's something else you need to understand." Keisha looked up again. She asked. Marcus's expression grew serious. "The Cole family doesn't just let people walk into their lives asking questions," he said. "If we approach them the wrong way—" He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. Amara looked between them, her voice small but determined. "I don't care if they're powerful," she said. "That's still my family." Keisha placed a hand on her shoulder, her eyes filled with both pride and fear. "She's right," she said softly. Judge Whitmore nodded once, his decision already made. Then we do this carefully, he said. But we do it, looked at both of them, then finally nodded. All right, he said. But if we're going to face the Cole family, he paused. You need to be ready for what we might find. Keisha's grip tightened on the paper. I've already lost 10 years, she said. I'm not losing anything else. Whitmore turned toward the door. Then let's go, he said, but just as they began to move, Marcus spoke again. One more thing, they stopped. What now? The judge asked. Marcus looked directly at him. The adoption records for Ethan Cole, he said slowly. They were sealed by a court order. Whitmore frowned. That's not unusual, he said. Marcus shook his head. It is when the judge who sealed them, he paused. Was you? The room went completely still. Judge Whitmore felt his entire body go cold, because suddenly this wasn't just about his past anymore. It was about something he had done himself, something he didn't even remember. And that meant one terrifying thing. He had been part of this all along. Just before we get back to the story, I'm curious, where are you watching from today? And if you're enjoying this journey so far, make sure you're subscribed for more stories like this. The room did not just fall silent after Marcus spoke. It felt like the air itself had been pulled out, leaving behind something heavy and suffocating that pressed down on all of them at once. Judge Daniel Whitmore didn't move. He stood there, frozen, his eyes locked on Marcus as if waiting for him to take the words back, to say it was a mistake, a misunderstanding, anything that would make sense of what he had just heard. That's not possible, he said finally, his voice low but firm, like he was trying to convince himself more than anyone else. I would remember something like that. Didn't look away. I thought the same thing when I found it, he said. But the records are clear. The adoption was sealed under your authority about 7 years ago. 7 years, Keisha repeated sharply. But that doesn't make sense. The fire happened 10 years ago. Exactly, Marcus said. The judge's brow tightened as his mind tried to catch up. You're saying the child survived the fire, stayed in the system for years, and then I somehow got involved later, he asked. Marcus nodded. That's what the timeline suggests, he said. Amara stepped closer, her voice soft but filled with confusion. But how could you not remember? She asked the judge. You're a judge, don't you remember your cases? Judge Whitmore looked down at her, and for the first time there was something vulnerable in his expression. I remember most of them, he said quietly, but not all, especially not the sealed ones. Keisha crossed her arms, her emotions now tangled between anger and disbelief. You helped hide my child, she asked, her voice rising slightly. And you don't even remember doing it. That's not what I'm saying, the judge replied quickly. I would never knowingly take part in something like this. But you did, she shot back. The tension between them grew instantly. Marcus stepped in before it could escalate. Slow down, he said. We don't have all the pieces yet. There's a difference between being involved and being used. Whitmore looked at him sharply. Used how? He asked. Marcus took a breath. If someone wanted to make sure that adoption stayed hidden forever, he said, they would need a judge with a clean reputation, someone no one would question. The realization began to settle in. And they chose me, the judge said quietly. Marcus replied. Because your name would make it look legitimate. Keisha shook her head slowly. This is crazy, she said. So all this time you were part of the same system that kept my child away from me? Judge Whitmore's jaw tightened. If that's true, he said, then I was manipulated just like you were. Looked between them, her small voice cutting through the tension again. Then we fix it, she said simply. They all turned to her. We find the truth, she continued. And we bring my family back together. Her words were simple, but they carried a kind of clarity the adults had lost. Marcus gave a slight nod. She's right, he said. But to do that, we need access to those sealed records. Whitmore straightened slightly, his expression shifting from confusion to determination. I can reopen the case, he said. Keisha looked at him. Just like that, she asked. He admitted. It won't be easy. Sealed records are protected for a reason. I'll need a valid legal cause, and even then there will be resistance. Marcus crossed his arms. From the Cole family, he said. Judge Whitmore nodded. Exactly. A brief silence followed, then Keisha spoke, her voice steady now. Then we give them a reason they can't ignore, she said. The judge looked at her. And what reason is that? He asked. Keisha stepped closer, her eyes locked onto his. The truth, she said. Amara nodded beside her. And me, she added quietly. Marcus watched them both, then turned back to the judge. She's the strongest proof you have, he said. If we can establish that she's your daughter, the judge understood immediately. A DNA test, he said. Keisha hesitated for just a second, then nodded. Fine, she said. Do it. Looked up at her. Will it hurt? She asked. Keisha smiled softly, brushing her hair back. Baby, she said. Just a little pinch. Whitmore took a slow breath. I'll arrange it immediately, he said. And once we have the results, we move forward with reopening the case. Nodded. That's our best shot, he said. Everything seemed to be falling into place. For the first time since the truth started unraveling, there was a sense of direction, a path forward. But just as that feeling began to settle, a sharp knock echoed on the courtroom door. All four of them turned. The door opened slowly. A woman stepped inside, tall, elegant, dressed in a perfectly tailored suit that spoke of wealth and control. Her eyes scanned the room, calm but calculating, until they landed on Judge Whitmore. Daniel, she said, her voice smooth but firm. I was wondering how long it would take before this situation got out of hand. The judge's expression darkened instantly. Who are you? Keisha demanded. The woman didn't look at her. Instead, she took a few slow steps forward. Name is Victoria Cole, she said. The room froze. Amara blinked. Marcus stiffened. Keisha's eyes widened. And Judge Whitmore felt a cold wave wash over him, because standing right in front of them was a member of the very family they were about to confront. Victoria's gaze finally shifted to Keisha and Amara. I believe, she said calmly, you've been asking questions about my son. The word son echoed in Keisha's mind. Her breath caught. Amara's heart began to race, and Marcus took a slow step forward, his instincts already on high alert. Judge Whitmore narrowed his eyes. What do you want? He asked. Victoria gave a small, controlled smile. I'm here to save you all from making a very serious mistake, she said. Keisha's voice came out sharper now. What mistake? She asked. Victoria's eyes locked onto hers. Digging into things that were buried for a reason, she said. The warning was clear. The tension in the room rose instantly. Judge Whitmore stepped forward, his voice firm. You don't get to walk in here and make threats, he said. Victoria didn't flinch. I'm not threatening you, she replied calmly. She paused. I'm protecting my family. Amara stepped forward suddenly, her small voice breaking through the tension. What about my family? She asked. Victoria looked down at her for the first time, and for just a second something flickered in her expression, something unexpected, but it disappeared just as quickly. There are things you don't understand, Victoria said softly. Amara lifted her chin. Then explain it, she said. A heavy silence followed. Victoria looked at Judge Whitmore again. You're planning to reopen the case, she said. To challenge the adoption. The judge didn't deny it. He said. Victoria nodded slowly. I thought so, she said. She reached into her bag and pulled out a document, placing it gently on the desk. What is that? Marcus asked. Victoria looked at him briefly, then back at the judge. A court order, she said. Judge Whitmore's eyes narrowed as he picked it up. His expression changed instantly as he read it. Keisha stepped closer. What does it say? She asked. The judge didn't answer right away because the words on that paper hit harder than anything so far. It says, he began slowly. He looked up at all of them. They've already blocked the case from being reopened. The room went silent again. Keisha's heart dropped. Amara's hope flickered. Marcus clenched his fists, and Victoria Cole simply stood there calm and composed as if she had just made her point perfectly clear. But then Judge Whitmore spoke again. And this time his voice carried something different, defiance. Then we find another way, he said. Victoria's smile faded slightly. And for the first time, it looked like she hadn't expected that. Victoria Cole did not respond immediately to Judge Whitmore's defiance, but the shift in her expression was subtle and real, like a crack forming in something that had always been perfectly controlled. And for the first time since she walked into that courtroom, she looked less certain. You don't understand what you're doing, she said finally, her voice still calm but carrying a sharper edge now. This is not a path you can simply choose and walk away from when it becomes uncomfortable. Whitmore stepped forward, his posture firm, his eyes locked onto hers. I think I understand more than you realize, he said, and I'm done letting other people decide what I can and cannot uncover. Marcus crossed his arms slightly, watching Victoria closely, reading every movement she made. You didn't come here just to warn us, he said. You came because you're worried. Victoria's gaze flicked toward him briefly, then back to the judge. I came here because I was informed that a situation involving my family was being handled. Carelessly, she replied. Keisha let out a short, bitter breath. Carelessly, she repeated. You mean a mother trying to find her child? Victoria finally turned to face her fully. I mean disrupting a life that has already been built, she said. A life that your child has known for years. Keisha stepped forward, anger now rising in her voice. That's not your decision to make, she said. You don't get to decide what my child deserves. Victoria held her gaze. She said quietly, but I do get to protect him. Word him echoed again. Amara's eyes moved quickly between them. You keep saying him, she said. So it is true Ethan is my brother. Victoria didn't answer directly. Instead, she looked down at Amara, studying her face more carefully now as if seeing something she hadn't expected. You remind me of someone, she said softly. Keisha stepped slightly in front of Amara. Do that, she said sharply. Don't act like you care. Victoria's expression hardened again. This isn't about care, she said. This is about stability. Whitmore shook his head. He said, this is about control. A brief silence followed, then Marcus stepped forward. Stop circling around it, he said. Is Ethan Cole the missing child? Victoria didn't respond right away. Instead, she walked slowly toward the large courtroom window, her heels clicking softly against the floor. And for a moment it felt like she was deciding something. Finally, she spoke. She said, the word landed with weight. Keisha's breath caught. Amara's eyes widened. Judge Whitmore felt his chest tighten again. Victoria turned back to face them. He was adopted legally, she continued. Every document, every signature, every approval was properly handled. Shook his head. The truth behind it, he said. Victoria didn't deny it. Some truths, she said carefully, do more harm than good. Keisha couldn't hold back anymore. Harm, she repeated, her voice rising. You think a child growing up without knowing his real mother is harm? Victoria's gaze softened just slightly, but her tone remained controlled. He has a good life, she said. Education, opportunities, protection, things you couldn't have given him at the time. The words hit hard. Keisha flinched, but she didn't back down. And now? She asked. What about now? Victoria didn't answer immediately, because the answer was not as simple anymore. Amara stepped forward again, her small voice steady. Does he know? She asked. Victoria looked at her. Know what? She replied. That he has a real mom and a sister, Amara said. The question lingered. Victoria's silence was enough. Amara's face fell slightly. He doesn't, she said quietly. Judge Whitmore's voice cut in. That needs to change, he said firmly. Victoria's expression sharpened again. She said. The single word was absolute. You don't get to decide that, the judge replied. I already have, Victoria said. Marcus stepped closer, his tone more direct now. You're afraid of what happens if he finds out, he said. Victoria didn't respond, but her silence spoke loudly. Keisha's voice came softer now, but filled with something deeper than anger. I'm not here to take him away, she said. I just want to know him, to let him know where he came from. Victoria looked at her carefully as if weighing those words. If he chooses to leave, she asked. The question hung heavy. Keisha hesitated, because that was a fear she hadn't fully faced yet. I just want the chance, she said finally. Amara nodded beside her. That's all, she added. A long silence followed. Victoria turned her gaze back to Judge Whitmore. You're reopening this case, she said. Yes, he replied. She gave a small, slow nod. Then you should know something, she said. Marcus narrowed his eyes slightly. He asked. Victoria's voice dropped just a little. Ethan isn't just part of our family, she said. He's part of something bigger now. Whitmore frowned. What does that mean? He asked. Victoria didn't answer directly. Instead, she walked back toward the door. It means, she said, pausing briefly, you won't be the only ones looking for him. The room stilled again. Keisha's heart skipped. Amara looked confused. Marcus stepped forward. Who else? He asked. Victoria placed her hand on the door handle. Then she looked back one last time. The people who made sure he ended up with us in the first place, she said. A chill ran through the room. Judge Whitmore's expression darkened. You mean my mother wasn't working alone, he said. Victoria didn't deny it. She said quietly. She wasn't. Door opened. But before she stepped out, she added one final sentence. And those people, she said. She paused. Don't like loose ends. Door closed behind her. Silence filled the courtroom once again, but this time it felt different, heavier, more dangerous. Keisha slowly turned toward Marcus. What does she mean by that? She asked. Marcus didn't answer right away, because he already knew, and he didn't like it. Judge Whitmore spoke instead, his voice low and serious. "It means this isn't just about finding Ethan anymore," he said. Amara looked up at him. "Then what is it about?" she asked. The judge looked at her, then at Keisha, then at Marcus. And when he spoke, his words carried a new kind of weight. "It's about exposing something people have been hiding for years," he said. Marcus nodded slowly. "And if we're right," he added, "then that orphanage, those adoptions," he paused. "They were part of a system." Keisha's eyes widened. "A system," she repeated. Marcus met her gaze. "A network," he said. "One that moves children into powerful families quietly." Realization hit hard. Amara stepped closer to her mother, gripping her hand. "That's bad," she whispered. Keisha said softly, "It is." Whitmore straightened slightly. "Then we move faster," he said. "We gather evidence, we find Ethan, and we bring all of this into the light." Nodded. "I know someone who might help," he said. Keisha looked at him. "Who?" she asked. Marcus hesitated for a moment. "Someone who used to be part of that system," he said. The room went still again. Judge Whitmore narrowed his eyes. "And you trust this person?" he asked. Marcus gave a small, uneasy smile. "Not completely," he admitted. "But they know things we don't." Amara looked up. "Where are they?" she asked. Marcus took a breath. "They're not easy to find," he said. "They've been hiding for years." Keisha's voice grew firm again. "Then we find them," she said. Judge Whitmore nodded. "Matter what it takes," he added. Marcus looked at both of them, then finally said the words that shifted everything again. "There's one problem," he said. They all looked at him. "What now?" the judge asked. Marcus's expression darkened. "They're not just hiding from the system," he said. He paused. "They're hiding from someone specific." Keisha felt a chill. "Who?" she asked. Marcus looked toward the door Victoria had just walked through, and then back at them. "The Cole family," he said. The room fell silent once more. Because now the lines were no longer clear. The family they needed answers from might also be the ones trying to keep the truth buried. And that meant one thing: they were walking straight into something far more dangerous than they had imagined. The decision to move forward was no longer just about truth. It was about risk, and every single one of them could feel it as they stepped out of the courtroom that had changed all their lives in just a few hours. The hallway outside was quiet, almost too quiet, like the building itself was holding its breath. And as they walked side by side, no one spoke at first because there was too much to process and not enough certainty to hold onto. It was Amara who finally broke the silence. "So, where do we go now?" she asked, her small voice echoing slightly against the walls. Marcus glanced down at her, then at Judge Whitmore. "We find the person I told you about," he said. Keisha folded her arms tightly. "And how exactly do we do that?" she asked. "You said they've been hiding for years." Nodded. "They have," he said. "But people don't just disappear completely. They leave traces, patterns, habits, connections." Whitmore slowed his pace slightly. "Do you have a name?" he asked. Marcus hesitated, like saying it out loud might carry its own consequences. "Her name is Lillian Graves," he said. Keisha frowned. "And she was part of this system?" she asked. Marcus nodded. "She handled placements," he said. "Not officially, of course. She worked behind the scenes, connecting children from places like that orphanage to families with influence." Amara's grip tightened on her mother's hand. "That sounds wrong," she said quietly. "It is," Marcus replied. They reached the building exit, and as the doors opened, the cool evening air hit them, carrying with it the distant sounds of the city, cars passing, people talking, life continuing as if nothing had changed, even though everything had. Marcus stopped walking. "I have an address," he said. Keisha's eyes sharpened. "Another one?" she asked. He nodded. "It's old," he admitted. "But it's the last place she was seen." Whitmore didn't hesitate. "Then we go," he said. Minutes later, they were in Marcus's car, the engine humming as they pulled onto the road, the city lights stretching out ahead of them like a path into the unknown. The drive was long, long enough for thoughts to grow louder. Keisha stared out the window, her mind replaying everything she had just learned, every lost moment, every possibility, every what if that now felt too real to ignore. Amara sat quietly beside her, her head leaning slightly against her mother's arm, but her eyes were open, watching the passing lights like she was trying to understand a world that had suddenly become much bigger and more complicated. Judge Whitmore sat in the front seat, his gaze fixed ahead, but his thoughts were far from the road. "I signed those papers," he said suddenly, breaking the silence. Marcus glanced at him briefly. "You didn't know," he said. "That doesn't change the fact that I did it," the judge replied. Keisha looked at him. "We'll deal with that later," she said softly. "Right now, we focus on finding him." The car continued forward. Finally, after what felt like hours, Marcus slowed down and turned onto a narrow, dimly lit street lined with older buildings, the kind that looked like they had stories buried deep within their walls. "This is it," he said. The car came to a stop in front of a small, worn apartment complex. The paint was peeling, the lights flickering, and the entire place carried a feeling of something forgotten, something left behind. Keisha stepped out first. "This is where she lives?" she asked, her voice filled with doubt. "Or used to," Marcus said as he got out. Judge Whitmore joined them, his eyes scanning the building carefully. "Let's not assume anything," he said. "We go in, we ask questions, and we stay alert." Amara stayed close to her mother as they walked toward the entrance. The door creaked as Marcus pushed it open, revealing a dim hallway that smelled faintly of dust and time. They moved slowly, carefully, each step echoing softly. They reached apartment 3B. Marcus knocked once, twice, no answer. Keisha's heart sank slightly. "Maybe she's not here," she said. Marcus frowned. "She should be," he muttered. Judge Whitmore tried the handle. It turned, unlocked. The three adults exchanged a look. "That's not a good sign," the judge said quietly. Marcus pushed the door open slowly. He called out. No response. They stepped inside. The apartment was small, cluttered, filled with stacks of papers, old boxes, and a faint smell of something stale, but there was no sign of anyone. Keisha looked around quickly. "Lillian?" she called out. Silence. Amara stayed close, her eyes wide as she took in the unfamiliar space. Marcus moved deeper into the apartment, scanning everything with sharp attention. Then he stopped. "What is it?" Judge Whitmore asked. Marcus pointed. On the table in the center of the room was a stack of files, fresh, recently touched. "That's not dust," he said. "Someone was here." Keisha stepped closer. "Then where are they now?" she asked. Before anyone could answer, a faint sound came from the back room, a creak like a floorboard shifting. Everyone froze. Judge Whitmore raised a hand slightly, signaling silence. Marcus moved first, slow and careful, stepping toward the sound. Keisha held Amara tighter. "Stay behind me," she whispered. They reached the doorway to the back room. Marcus pushed it open, and what they saw made all of them stop instantly. A woman sat in a chair, her posture stiff, her eyes wide open. Lillian Graves. But something was wrong, very wrong. Keisha gasped softly. "She okay?" Amara whispered. Marcus stepped closer, his expression darkening. He said quietly. Judge Whitmore moved beside him. "What happened?" he asked. Marcus didn't answer right away, because he was staring at something in Lillian's hand, a piece of paper clutched tightly, like it was the last thing she had tried to hold on to. "Touch anything yet," the judge said, but Marcus carefully took the paper anyway, his movement slow. "What does it say?" Keisha asked, her voice trembling. Marcus unfolded it, his eyes scanned the words, and then his face changed. "What is it?" Judge Whitmore demanded. Marcus looked up, his voice was low. "She knew we were coming," he said. The room went cold. Keisha's heart began to race. She asked. Marcus held up the paper. "There's more," he said. He swallowed slightly. "It's a warning." Amara's grip tightened again. "What kind of warning?" she asked softly. Marcus looked at all of them, his expression serious. "The kind that tells us to stop digging," he said. A heavy silence followed. Judge Whitmore's jaw clenched. "If we do?" he asked. Marcus looked back down at the paper, then he read the final line out loud. "Next time," he paused, "we won't miss." The words "we won't miss" didn't just echo in the room, they lingered, like something alive that refused to leave. And for a moment, no one spoke because the meaning behind them was too clear and too close. Amara moved closer to Keisha, her small fingers gripping tightly. And for the first time since all of this began, fear showed clearly on her face. "Mom," she whispered, "are we in danger?" Keisha swallowed hard, forcing herself to stay strong even as her heart pounded faster than ever. She said softly, though her voice wasn't as steady as she wanted it to be. "We're going to be okay." Marcus didn't pretend. He said quietly, "We are." The truth landed heavily. Judge Whitmore turned sharply toward him. "Then we don't stay here," he said. "We call this in and we leave." Nodded. "I already did," he said. "Someone should be on their way." Keisha looked at Lillian's lifeless form again, her chest tightening. "She was our lead," she said. "And now she's gone." Marcus shook his head slightly. He said, "Not completely." Held up the paper again. "She left us something," he added. Judge Whitmore stepped closer. "Read it again," he said. Marcus nodded and scanned the page carefully, this time slower, more focused, like he was searching between the lines rather than just reading them. "It's not just a warning," he said. "There's something else here." Keisha leaned in. "What do you mean?" she asked. Marcus pointed to a small section near the bottom. "These numbers," he said. "They're not random," Whitmore frowned. "A code?" he asked. "Maybe," Marcus replied. "Or coordinates or a date." Amara looked up. "Or a place," she said. They all turned to her. Marcus gave a small nod. "That's possible too," he said. Judge Whitmore took the paper, his eyes narrowing as he studied the numbers more closely. "Wait," he said slowly. "I've seen something like this before." Keisha looked at him. "Where?" she asked. The judge hesitated for just a second. "The adoption files," he said. Marcus's attention sharpened instantly. "What kind of files?" he asked. "The sealed ones," the judge replied. "There were reference codes attached to certain cases, not part of the official system." Keisha's breath caught. "You mean hidden records?" she said. "Yes," the judge confirmed. Marcus leaned in closer. "Can you access them?" he asked. Judge Whitmore shook his head slightly. "Not directly," he said. "But I know where they're stored." Keisha stepped forward, urgency rising again. "Then that's where we go next," she said. Before anyone could respond, sirens sounded in the distance, loud, getting closer. Marcus straightened. "That's our cue," he said. "We need to move." Whitmore nodded. "Take the paper," he said. "And anything else that looks important." Marcus quickly scanned the room, grabbing a small folder from the table along with the note. Keisha took one last look at Lillian, her expression filled with a mix of sadness and frustration. "She tried to help," she said softly. Marcus glanced back. "And it cost her," he replied. They moved quickly toward the door. Amara stayed close, her eyes darting around, her world no longer feeling safe the way it once had. As they stepped out into the hallway, the sound of sirens grew louder, flashing lights beginning to reflect faintly through the building windows. They exited the building just as the first police car turned onto the street. "Over here," Marcus called, waving them off slightly to avoid immediate attention. They got into the car quickly, the engine started, and within seconds they were pulling away. Inside the car, silence filled the space again, but it wasn't the same silence as before. This one was heavier, more urgent, more dangerous. "They're watching us," Keisha said quietly. Marcus nodded. He said, "Which means we're getting close." Looked up. "To what?" she asked. Judge Whitmore answered. "The truth," he said. The car sped through the city streets, moving away from the scene, away from the danger behind them, but straight towards something even bigger ahead. After a few minutes, Marcus spoke again. "Those hidden records," he said. "Where are they?" Judge Whitmore hesitated. "Not in the courthouse," he said. Marcus frowned. "Then where?" he asked. The judge took a breath. "A private archive," he said. "One that my mother funded before she died." Keisha's eyes narrowed. "Another place connected to her," she said. "Yes," the judge replied. "And if those numbers mean what I think they mean," he trailed off. Marcus looked at him. "Then what?" he asked. The judge's voice dropped slightly. "Then Ethan's file isn't just hidden," he said. "It's marked." Amara frowned. "What does that mean?" she asked. Marcus answered this time. "It means his case is important," he said. "More important than the others." Keisha's stomach tightened. She asked. No one answered immediately, because they all knew what that could mean. The car slowed as they approached a quieter part of the city where older buildings stood in silence, their windows dark, their presence almost forgotten. Marcus pulled over. "We're here," he said. Keisha looked out. The building in front of them was large, stone-faced, with tall gates and security cameras positioned at every corner. It didn't look abandoned, it looked protected. "What is this place?" she asked. Judge Whitmore stared at it, his expression serious. "It's called the Whitmore Archive," he said. Amara blinked. "Like your name?" she asked. He replied. Keisha looked at him sharply. "Your mother owned this too?" she asked. He nodded. He said. Marcus turned off the engine. "Then this is where we find answers," he said. They stepped out of the car. The air felt colder here, heavier. As they approached the gate, Amara suddenly stopped walking. "Wait," she said. They all turned to her. "What is it?" Keisha asked. Amara looked up at the building, her face pale. "I feel like—" She began slowly. "Like what?" the judge asked. She swallowed. "Like someone is already inside," she said. Silence followed. Marcus exchanged a quick glance with Judge Whitmore. "Stay close," he said. They reached the gate. It was slightly open, just enough to slip through. Judge Whitmore frowned. "That's not right," he said. "This place should be locked." Push the gate open slowly. It creaked loudly, too loudly. And as they stepped inside, the feeling Amara had described became real. They weren't alone. The front doors of the archive were already open. Lights flickered inside, and somewhere deep within the building, a faint sound echoed. A door closing, Judge Whitmore's voice dropped to a whisper. "We're too late," he said. Marcus shook his head. He replied. He looked ahead, his expression focused. "We're right on time." Keisha tightened her grip on Amara's hand, and together they stepped into the archive, not knowing that what they were about to find inside would change everything they thought they understood about Ethan and about themselves. The moment they stepped into the Whitmore archive, the air changed. It felt colder inside, not just because of the temperature, but because of what the place carried: years of secrets, decisions, and hidden truths locked behind shelves of files that stretched from floor to ceiling, each one holding a story that someone somewhere had tried to bury. The lights flickered softly above them. "Stay close," Marcus said quietly, his voice echoing slightly in the vast space. Amara tightened her grip on Keisha's hand, her eyes moving quickly from one shadow to another, her small instincts telling her that something about this place wasn't safe. Judge Whitmore stepped forward slowly, his gaze scanning the room like he was seeing it for the first time, even though it carried his family's name. "This is where she kept everything," he said, almost to himself. "Everything she didn't want the world to see." Keisha looked around, her chest tightening. "Then our answers are here," she said. Marcus nodded. "Yeah," he replied. "If we can find them before whoever else is here does." A faint sound echoed again from deeper inside the archive. A soft shuffle, then silence. They all froze. Amara leaned closer to her mother. "That wasn't us," she whispered. Marcus said. "It wasn't." Whitmore's voice dropped lower. "We move carefully," he said. "No sudden moves." They walked forward, passing rows of shelves filled with labeled boxes and old case files, the faint smell of paper and dust filling the air, and with every step, the feeling of being watched grew stronger. Marcus stopped at a section near the back. "Here," he said. "This is it." Keisha stepped beside him. "What makes you sure?" she asked. Marcus pointed at the labels. "These aren't standard case numbers," he said. "They match the format from the code on Lillian's note." Whitmore moved closer, his eyes scanning the files quickly. "Then we find Ethan," he said. They began searching carefully. Quickly minutes passed, the tension built with every second. "And then I found it," Marcus said. They all turned. In his hands was a thin, sealed folder marked with a code that matched the numbers from the note. Keisha's breath caught. "That's it," she whispered. Judge Whitmore stepped forward. "Open it," he said. Marcus hesitated for just a moment, then broke the seal. He opened the file. His eyes scanned the first page, and his expression changed instantly. "What is it?" Keisha asked, her voice trembling. Marcus didn't answer right away. Instead, he handed the file to Judge Whitmore. The judge looked down, read, and then his entire face went still. He said under his breath. Keisha's heart began to race. She demanded, "What does it say?" Judge Whitmore looked up slowly, and when he spoke, his voice carried shock, disbelief, and something else, something deeper. "It says Ethan Cole isn't his original identity," he said. Amara frowned. "What does that mean?" she asked. Marcus answered quietly. "It means his name was changed," he said. Keisha stepped forward quickly. "Then what was his real name?" she asked. Judge Whitmore looked back down at the file. His hands tightened slightly, and then he read it. "His name," he began slowly, "was Elijah." The name hung in the air. Keisha's knees nearly gave out. "Elijah," she whispered. "That was the name I picked if I had a boy." Looked up at her. "It is him," she said softly. Tears filled Keisha's eyes. "Yes," she said. "It is." For a brief moment, hope filled the room, but it didn't last because Marcus was still reading and his expression grew darker. "There's more," he said. Judge Whitmore looked at him. "What now?" he asked. Marcus flipped to the next page. "It explains why his case was marked," he said. Keisha wiped her tears quickly. She asked. Marcus hesitated. Then he spoke. "Because he wasn't just placed into the Cole family," he said. The room went still again. "What do you mean?" the judge asked. Marcus looked up. "He was selected," he said. Amara frowned. "Selected for what?" she asked. Marcus's voice dropped. "For a program," he said. Keisha's heart sank. "What kind of program?" she asked. Before Marcus could answer, a slow clap echoed through the archive. They all turned instantly. From the shadows, a man stepped forward, tall, calm, dressed in a dark suit that matched the seriousness in his eyes. "Well done," he said smoothly. "You found it faster than I expected." Marcus's expression hardened instantly. "I was wondering when you'd show up," he said. Judge Whitmore stepped in front of Keisha and Amara. "Who are you?" he demanded. The man smiled slightly. A man who's been watching this unfold for a very long time, he said. Keisha's voice came sharp. What do you want? She asked. The man's gaze shifted to her. What I've always wanted, he said. To keep things in order. Amara stepped closer to her mother. You're one of them, she said. Anne looked down at her. He said simply. Marcus clenched his fists. You're part of the network, he said. The man nodded. We prefer the term foundation, he replied. Judge Whitmore's jaw tightened. You've been moving children, he said, placing them into powerful families. Man didn't deny it. We've been giving them opportunities, he said, placing them where they can become something greater. Keisha's voice broke with anger. You stole them, she said. The man's expression didn't change. We chose them, he corrected. Amara shook her head. That's wrong, she said. The man looked at her again, studying her carefully. Perhaps, he said, but effective. Whitmore stepped forward. This ends now, he said. The man smiled slightly. He said, it doesn't. Marcus moved subtly, positioning himself closer to the others. You're not walking out of here, he said. The man tilted his head slightly. You're right, he said, and then he gestured lightly behind them. A sound echoed. They turned. More footsteps, more people emerging from the shadows. The realization hit instantly. They were surrounded. Keisha pulled Amara closer, her heart racing. What do we do? She whispered. Judge Whitmore didn't hesitate. We don't let them take anything else, he said. Marcus nodded. Especially not that file, he added. The man stepped closer, his voice calm but firm. You've already seen too much, he said. Hand over the file and we can still resolve this quietly. Keisha shook her head. She said. Amara lifted her chin. That's my brother, she said. You don't get to hide him. Man's expression shifted slightly again, then he sighed. I was hoping you'd be more reasonable, he said. Judge Whitmore stepped forward again, his voice strong. You built this on lies, he said, and it's coming down. Man looked at him. Do you really believe that? He asked. The judge said. A pause followed. Then the man smiled again. Good, he said, and suddenly the lights went out. Darkness swallowed the room. Amara gasped. Keisha held her tight. What's happening? She whispered. Footsteps. Fast, close. Marcus's voice cut through the dark. Move, he shouted. Judge Whitmore grabbed Keisha's arm. Stay with me, he said. In the chaos, something fell. A shelf, files scattered across the floor, voices rose, shouts echoed, and then a single beam of light flickered back on just for a second, long enough for Keisha to see something that made her heart stop. A photo fallen from the file, a teenage boy standing beside Victoria Cole, smiling, unaware of everything. Elijah, she whispered. The light went out again. Darkness returned, and in that darkness, that brings us to the end of this story. I'd love to know where you were watching from today, and if this story meant something to you, don't forget to subscribe for more.